You see it everywhere. People who know exactly what to do and can't seem to make themselves do it. People who set the goal in the morning and betray it by afternoon. People who want the harvest but won't guard the field. And it's not because they're weak. It's because nobody ever taught them the truth. If you can't control your mind, you cannot win in life. Not out there, not in here, not anywhere. And I want to tell you why. Now here's the thing, most people never sit down and admit to themselves, your life is not being run by your circumstances. Your life is being run by your mind. And your mind, for most of your years, has been running without a driver. Nobody at the wheel. Nobody checking the map. Nobody deciding where the car goes. It just drifts. Wherever the road slopes, that's where you end up. Wherever the wind pushes, that's the direction you take. Wherever the noise is loudest, that's what you follow. And you call that living. Here's the truth. It isn't living. It's being carried. There's a difference. And the difference is the whole difference between the life you have and the life you were meant to have. I've watched good people spend 40 years carried by their own untrained minds. 40 years. Same worries, same loops, same self-talk, same little voice in the back of the head saying, you're not enough, it won't work, don't try, you'll just fail again. And they listen to that voice like it's a friend. Friend, that voice is not your friend. That voice is a squatter. It moved in when you weren't paying attention, and it's been paying no rent and eating your groceries ever since. And most people never once ask it to leave. Here's what nobody tells you about the mind. It's a garden, not a machine, not a computer, not a warehouse, a garden. And whatever you plant in it will grow. Whatever you water in it will grow. And whatever you refuse to weed will also grow. The mind does not care what it grows. It grows what you feed it. Feed it fear, you get fear. Feed it doubt, you get doubt. Feed it complaint, you get a life full of things to complain about. Feed it possibility, you get possibility. Feed it discipline, you get results. That's the whole law. That's the entire mechanism most people miss. And here's what makes it invisible. You didn't plant most of what's growing in your head. Somebody else did. Your parents, your teachers, the kids on the playground when you were 8. That coach who told you weren't good enough. That relative who said your dreams were foolish. That job that told you to keep your head down. That voice on the screen that told you what to fear this week. All of them planting seeds in a garden you thought was yours. And you kept watering what they planted because you didn't realize you had the choice not to. Now, some people will say, well, that's just who I am. That's just how I think. And I want you to hear me carefully. That is not who you are. That is who you have been. Big difference. Who you have been is a habit. Who you are is a decision you haven't fully made yet. Because the mind you were handed at 18 or 25 or 40 is not a life sentence. It is a starting condition. And starting conditions can be changed. But only by the one person who owns the garden. You. Here's the invisible mechanism most people miss. The world doesn't beat you. Your untrained mind beats you first, and then hands you over to the world already defeated. Read that slowly. The world doesn't beat you. Your untrained mind beats you first, and then hands you over to the world already defeated. Think about the last time you didn't try something. Was it because the world stopped you? Or was it because a voice inside you stopped you before the world ever got a chance? Think about the last time you quit something. Was it because it was truly impossible? Or was it because a voice inside you said, this is too hard for someone like you? That voice. That is the enemy. Not your boss, not the economy, not your background, not your childhood, not your bank account. That voice. And until you learn to command that voice instead of obey it, no strategy, no book, no plan, no coach, no course, no opportunity is going to save you. Because you will drag that voice into every opportunity and it will sabotage every one of them from the inside. Every single one. Until you deal with the voice, you'll keep meeting yourself at the door of every new life you try to enter. And the man in the doorway will keep turning you away. And here's what I discovered, and I'll come back to this before we finish. Once I understood that the real fight was not out there but in here, My whole life started to move in ways it had never moved before. But hold that thought. I want to walk you through the mechanism first, because you'll need it. Here's the central law. Write it down somewhere. Put it on the mirror. Tape it to the refrigerator. Say it out loud tomorrow morning. He who commands his mind commands his life. He who does not is commanded by everything else. Say it slowly. He who commands his mind commands his life. He who does not is commanded by everything else. The mood, the weather, the headline, the neighbor, the screen, the past, the paycheck, the room he walks into, the tone somebody used at the door. Every one of those things becomes his king because he never crowned himself. Here's the law inside the law. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your thinking. Goals are the roof. Thinking is the foundation, and no roof stands taller than the foundation underneath it. You can want a mansion of a life, but if your foundation is cracked with self-doubt, tangled with worry, soaked in fear, littered with old scripts nobody ever helped you throw out, then the mansion you want will never stand. Not because the mansion is impossible, because the ground you're building on can't hold it, which means the discipline of a life doesn't start with what you do. It starts with what you think. And what you think doesn't start with a book or a podcast or a lecture. It starts with what you allow in through your eyes, what you allow in through your ears, what you allow to loop in your head at 3 a.m, what you allow to be spoken to you and about you without correction. Because every one of those inputs is a seed, and every one of those seeds is going to grow. See, that's the key. Winning in life is not first a matter of hustle. It is first a matter of ownership. Ownership of the one piece of real estate the world cannot take from you unless you hand it over. The 6 inches between your ears. Most people have handed over the deed, and they don't even know they've done it. That's what we're going to fix. Not by force, by understanding. Because once you see the mechanism, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you can't keep living the way you were. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you about a man I once knew. I'll call him Earl. Earl was a mechanic in a small town, one of those towns where everybody knows everybody's business, whether they want to or not. And Earl was the kind of man who could fix anything with an engine. Cars, tractors, old boat motors, lawn equipment. Bring him a broken piece of iron and grease, and he'd stand there quiet, listen to the sound, put his hand on it, and by evening, it would be running like it just came off the factory floor. That was Earl, a gift. Everybody in that town knew he had a gift. But here's the thing about Earl. Earl thought he was stupid. He'd been told he was stupid by a teacher when he was 9 years old. One teacher, one sentence, one afternoon. And that sentence took root in the garden of Earl's mind and grew for the next 41 years. Every time he'd think about starting his own shop, that sentence would rise up. Every time somebody offered him a bigger job in a bigger town, that sentence would rise up. Every time his wife would sit down at the kitchen table and say, "Earl, we could really build something here," that sentence would rise up. "You're stupid. You'll fail. Who do you think you are?" And Earl obeyed that sentence every single time for 41 years. Now, here's what fascinated me. Earl was not stupid. Earl was one of the sharpest, most intuitive, most naturally gifted men I ever met. He could look at a problem and see 3 moves ahead of it. If he'd been born in a different family, in a different town, with a different teacher, that same man would have been running an operation the size of a small county. Same brain. Same hands, same heart, same person, just a different sentence in his head. That's the whole thing. Read it slowly. Same person, just a different sentence in his head. And I remember sitting across from Earl one night, on the porch of his shop, oil rag over his shoulder, sun going down over the field. And I said to him, "Earl, who told you you were stupid?" And he got quiet for a long time. And then he told me, "A woman, a schoolroom, a math problem, a moment." And I said, "Earl, do you realize you have handed 41 years of your one life over to a woman who forgot she said it before the school bell rang?" And he looked at me, and his eyes filled up, and he didn't say anything. That night, something in Earl broke. Not in a bad way. In the good way. In the way a wall breaks when you finally push through it. He didn't become a different man. He just stopped listening to a voice that had never been his in the first place. 2 years later, Earl had his own shop. 5 years later, he had 3 bays and 2 helpers. 10 years later, his son was running the operation with him, and Earl was training young mechanics who'd come from 3 counties over to learn from the man who couldn't do math. He didn't grow smarter. He grew freer. Because he'd finally taken back the deed to the 6 inches between his ears. Now here's what I want you to sit with. How many Earls are walking around right now with a sentence in their head that isn't even theirs? How many bright, capable, gifted people are living small lives because of one afternoon they can't quite remember, but their nervous system never forgot? How many of the ceilings you feel over your life were not built by your abilities, but by somebody else's careless words that you kept alive by rehearsing them? Here's the truth. Most people are not held back by what they lack. They are held back by what they believe about themselves that isn't true, and they've believed it for so long that they now defend it. Isn't that something? They will defend the very sentence that is imprisoning them. They will argue for their limitations. They will say, no, you don't understand. I really am the kind of person who can't. And what they're really saying is, I really do still believe the thing somebody said to me a long time ago. Now let me ask you something. Whose sentence are you carrying? What voice, what afternoon, what teacher, what parent, what coach, what boss, what friend, what stranger, what version of yourself when you were 10 or 15 or 22, whose sentence has been running your life? And how much longer are you going to let it? Because until you learn to sit with that sentence, look at it in the light, and decide whether or not to keep watering it, it's going to keep growing. And your life is going to keep shaping itself around it. And you will keep wondering why the harvest never changes. Here's what's fascinating. If you watch people closely, and I mean really watch, not glance, watch, you start to see there are 2 kinds of people when it comes to their own minds. And once you see the difference, you cannot unsee it. Most people are used by their minds. The few use their minds. Most people react to their thoughts. The few examine their thoughts. Most people believe every voice in their head. The few interrogate every voice in their head. Most people accept the first thought that arrives. The few wait for the second. Most people say, I feel afraid, so I must not do it. The few say, I feel afraid, so I already know it matters. Most people say, I don't feel like it. The few say, it's not about feeling like it, it's about doing it anyway. Most people manage their moods. The few manage their focus. Most people are entertained by their minds. The few are trained by their minds. Most people spend the day reacting. The few spend the day directing. Most people let the phone decide what they think about for the next hour. The few decide what they think about and then check the phone. And here's the one that separates almost everybody. Most people believe their thoughts are them. The few know their thoughts are just weather. Weather passes. You do not have to become every cloud that drifts over your head. You can stand there, watch the cloud, notice it, name it, and let it move on. That right there is one of the most important skills a human being can develop in this life. And nobody ever teaches it in school. Here's the contrast. The average person's mind is a house with the doors wide open. Anybody can walk in. Any voice, any headline, any argument, any old memory that wants to sit on the couch, any fear that wants a bedroom, and nobody's home to check the door. The exceptional person's mind is a house with a door, not locked to everything, not paranoid, but guarded, curated, chosen. Only what serves the life they're building gets to come in and stay. Everything else can knock, but it doesn't get a key. The average person thinks freedom is doing whatever the mind demands. The exceptional person knows freedom is doing what you decided, regardless of what the mind demands. That is the deepest freedom there is. And most people go their whole lives without tasting it once. Here's the truth. If you do what most people do with their minds, you will get what most people get from their lives. And what do most people get? They get a life shaped by their strongest fear, not their strongest gift. They get a life shaped by what they scrolled past, not what they sat with. They get a life shaped by what happened to them decades ago, not what they've decided today. Look around. That's not a rare tragedy. That's the average outcome. If you want an uncommon life, you have to be willing to develop an uncommon mind. And an uncommon mind is not a gifted mind. It's a governed one. It is not smarter. It is more disciplined. It is not louder. It is quieter. It is not more entertained. It is more selective. It is not more informed. It is more focused. That is the only real difference between the mind that wins and the mind that wanders. And here's what nobody tells you about the exceptional person. They didn't start exceptional. Almost none of them did. They started with the same noisy head you have, the same self-doubt, the same 3 a.m. worry, the same replay of embarrassments from 10 years ago, the same fear of being seen, the same voice saying, "Who do you think you are?" All of it, every bit of it. What made them different wasn't a quieter head. It was a better relationship with a loud one. They stopped believing everything the head said. They started choosing what to listen to and what to walk past. And they did that long enough for it to become who they were. See, that's the key. You don't have to silence your mind to win. You just have to stop obeying every noise it makes. You don't have to have no fear. You just have to stop letting fear cast the deciding vote. You don't have to have no doubt. You just have to stop letting doubt hold the pen when you're writing your future. And this is not a talent. This is a practice. Anybody can learn it. Anybody, including you, especially you. Now, here's what I discovered, and I want you to lean in for this, because this next piece took me years to see, and it is the one that changes everything downstream of it. You do not have a thought problem. You have an attention problem. Read that slowly. You do not have a thought problem. You have an attention problem. Thoughts arrive. They just do. They arrive in the mind of the saint, and they arrive in the mind of the sinner. They arrive in the mind of the millionaire, and they arrive in the mind of the man who just lost everything. Thoughts are not the enemy. Thoughts are just birds flying over your head. You can't stop them from flying over. But, and this is the whole thing, you can decide whether to build a nest in your hair. Most people are building nests all day long and don't even know it. A little worry lands. Instead of watching it go, they build a nest. Now they've got a whole story going. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I already failed? What if I already blew it? And that little bird has now built a home. And in that home, 3 other birds arrive. And now the head is full of nests. And the person can't sleep. And they don't know why. Here's the shift. You don't need to fight every thought. You need to stop feeding the ones that are killing you. Feeding is attention. Every time you give attention to a thought, you are watering that seed. And whatever you water grows. So, the real skill of a strong mind isn't the absence of dark thoughts. It's the discipline of what you water and what you let dry up. And here's what nobody tells you about attention. Attention is the most valuable currency you own. More valuable than money. More valuable than time. Because your attention is how you spend your time. Your attention is where your life actually happens. Show me where a person's attention goes for a year, and I'll show you the life they'll have in 5. Every time, without exception. Most people are treating their attention like it's free. It isn't free. Every hour of attention you spent yesterday, you paid for with a piece of your life you will never get back. Every hour. And the question is not whether you spent it. You did. The question is whether you spent it on things that made you or on things that emptied you, because attention is either an investment or a leak. It is never neutral. Never. Here's the truth about compounding, and it applies to the mind more than anywhere else. A single distracted hour looks like nothing. A single fearful thought entertained looks like nothing. A single "I'll deal with it tomorrow" looks like nothing. Same way, one drop of water leaving a bucket looks like nothing. But leave the drop long enough and the bucket is empty. Meanwhile, one focused hour looks like nothing. One thought of possibility entertained looks like nothing. One I'm going to sit and think this through properly looks like nothing. Same way one seed dropped in the soil looks like nothing. But leave the seed long enough and you're standing in a field. You are always compounding something. Always. Either fear or courage. Either doubt or trust. Either scatter or focus. Either the story that keeps you small or the story that grows you up. And the terrifying, freeing truth is, it's your choice. Every single hour. Every single day. Not once. Not big. Small and constant. Here's what nobody tells you about the price of a disciplined mind. It costs you. It does. It costs you the drama. It costs you the loops. It costs you the addiction to being right about how hard your life has been. It costs you the strange comfort of your favorite complaint. It costs you the identity of the one who has been through so much. Because when you finally start commanding your mind, you have to give up some of the stories that have kept you company for a long time. And that's not nothing. That's real. But here's what I want you to weigh against it. The price of an ungoverned mind is heavier every time. Because an ungoverned mind will steal your sleep. It will steal your peace. It will steal your marriage. It will steal your energy. It will steal your capacity to be present with your own children. It will steal the ordinary joy of an ordinary Tuesday. It will steal your ability to hear a compliment. It will steal your ability to hear correction. It will make small things feel enormous and enormous things feel small. And it will do all of that while making you feel like it's the world doing it to you, not the noise inside your own head. The pain of training your mind weighs ounces. The pain of leaving it wild weighs tons. And you will pay one of those two prices. There is no third door. Let me tell you about standards, because this is where it all lives. Your life will never rise above the standards of your own inner conversation, not 1 inch above them. If the way you speak to yourself is harsh, dismissive, sarcastic, impatient, then the life you build will be harsh, dismissive, sarcastic, impatient. If the way you speak to yourself is gentle, honest, firm, encouraging, then the life you build will look like that too. You are always in a conversation, every waking hour. And the tone of that conversation becomes the tone of your entire existence. Change the tone of the conversation, you change the tone of the life. It really is that simple. And it really is that hard. Now here's the deeper thing. It's not about positive thinking. It's about honest thinking. It's not about telling yourself lies. It's about stopping the ones you've been telling. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to make everything worse in your own head than it actually is in the world. Because most of your suffering, and I want you to sit with this, most of your suffering is not what happened. It is what you keep telling yourself about what happened. And nobody is telling you that story but you. Which means nobody can stop telling it but you. And nobody can tell a better one but you. You can't feed your mind fear all day and expect to live a life of courage. You can't scroll through outrage for 2 hours and expect to feel peaceful when you set the phone down. You can't rehearse an old betrayal for 20 years and expect to walk into a new relationship with open hands. You can't tell yourself you're not enough every morning and expect the world to somehow disagree with you. What you rehearse, you become. Every time. Every time. Without exception. And most people are rehearsing the very life they say they don't want. So, let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, not the answer that sounds right. The answer that is right. What did you feed your mind yesterday? Really? Walk through the day in your head. What went in through your eyes? What went in through your ears? What conversations did you sit in that lifted you? And what conversations did you sit in that quietly emptied you? How many minutes did you spend in your own head, undirected, letting whatever thought wanted to run, run? And how many minutes did you spend in your head with a purpose, thinking on purpose, deciding on purpose, planning on purpose? Who's been renting space in your head lately? And why haven't you asked them for the key back? What sentence have you been repeating about yourself without even noticing you're repeating it? Say it out loud. Really. Say it in your head right now. Is it true? Is it useful? Is it yours? Or is it somebody else's leftover? When was the last time you sat still with no screen, no music, no distraction for even 10 minutes and just watched your own thoughts go by? Not judged them, not fought them, just watched. If you can't remember, that's your answer. That's the diagnosis. And it's fixable. How many decisions did you make yesterday because you decided them? And how many did you make because your mood decided them for you? When something bothered you yesterday, how long did you carry it? 10 minutes? An hour? All day? Did you deal with it or did you just rehearse it? Because there is a difference between processing a thing and marinating in a thing. And most people are marinating and calling it thinking. These aren't accusations. These are honest questions. Because until you can answer them honestly, the life you say you want will keep waiting on the other side of a mind you haven't yet learned to steer. And it will wait a long time. It will wait years. It will wait decades. It will wait forever if you let it. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this sounds like a lot. I don't have time to do all this mental work. My life is already full. And here's what I want to say to that. With kindness. You're not adding something new. You're taking something back. You're not building a second job on top of your life. You're finally getting the first job, being the one at the wheel of your own head, under control. And once that job is done well, every other job becomes easier. Every one of them. Your work becomes easier. Your relationships become easier. Your rest becomes easier. Your money becomes easier. Because everything you do in the outer world is being run right now by the software you never bothered to check in your inner one. You don't have time not to do this. You've been paying the price of not doing it for years and calling that price life. It isn't. It's just what happens to a person who never took possession of their own mind. And it can end. It can end this week. It can end tonight, if you decide. Let me share something with you. Something a mentor of mine said to me a long time ago, back when I was young and had a head full of noise and didn't know it. I was complaining about something. I don't even remember what, but I remember him. Older man, slow to speak, big hands, the kind of eyes that had watched a lot of foolish men learn a lot of expensive lessons. And after I finished talking, he was quiet for a while. Then he said, "Son, you don't have a problem out there. You have a problem in there." And he tapped his own head, just once. And he didn't say anything else. He sipped his coffee, and he waited, that tap, that single tap on the side of his own head. I've carried that with me for the rest of my life, because he was right. And I was so used to pointing at the world that I didn't even know he was right until years later. But he was. He told me one other thing that day, and I want to give it to you. He said, "The man who can command his own thoughts is the freest man alive, even if he owns nothing. And the man who can't is the poorest man alive, even if he owns everything." And that has proved true 1,000 times in 1,000 lives I've watched since. I have known men with vaults full of money and prisons full of thoughts. And I have known men with almost nothing to their name, whose minds were so well ordered, they carried peace with them into every room they entered. And if I had to choose which of the two men to be, I would choose the second ones every single time. And I think if you sit with it, honestly, you would too. Now let me tell you about two friends. Same neighborhood, same schools, same kind of family, same starting point. They both ran into hardship in their 30s. Same kind of hardship, roughly. A layoff, a marriage that shook, a parent who got sick, the kind of triple hit that finds most people at some point in life. The first one, I'll call him Tom, went inward with the hardship, but not in a good way. He rehearsed it. He watered it. He talked about it every time he sat down for coffee. He told the story of what happened to him again and again until the story became larger than his life. He watched the news 3 hours a day to confirm that the world was against people like him. He fell asleep to arguments in his head with people who weren't there. He carried the layoff for 10 years like it happened yesterday. And by the end of those 10 years, he had built a life that perfectly matched the story he'd been telling himself. Small, bitter, stuck. Not because the world had beaten him, but because his own untrained mind had beaten him first, and then dressed the loss up as the world's fault. The second one, I'll call him Danny. Same 3 hits. Same 3 hardships. Different response. Danny sat with what happened. He grieved what needed grieving. He didn't pretend, but he refused to rehearse. He refused to let the story become bigger than his life. He started every morning writing down 3 things he could actually control that day and doing them. Just those 3. He started every evening refusing to marinate in what he couldn't change. He started reading in the hour he used to spend rehearsing. He started walking in the hour he used to spend arguing with people who weren't in the room. He didn't do anything dramatic. He didn't move to another country. He didn't discover some magic. He just quietly refused to let his mind be the second hit after the first one. 10 years later, Tom and Danny were living in different worlds. Same street, roughly. Different lives. Danny wasn't rich, but he was steady. He was present. He was building. He had peace with his wife. He had energy in the evenings. He had a small growing thing on the side of his regular work that he'd built one careful step at a time. And Tom was still telling the same story about the layoff 10 years earlier. Still shaking his head, still watching the same news, still angry at the same ghosts, same start, same hits, different endings. Why? Not luck, not talent, not connections. One of them decided quietly, without anybody watching, that his mind was going to serve his life. And the other one let his mind rule his life. And the mind, when it rules, is a cruel king. It will spend everything you have and give nothing back. Here's the truth. The mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. Read that one twice. A wonderful servant and a terrible master. When you command it, it will build you anything. When you let it command you, it will spend you down to nothing. And there is no in-between. There is no neutral. Either you are running it, or it is running you. Right now, this evening, one of those 2 is true about your life, and only you know which. So here's my challenge to you tonight, and I mean tonight. Not Monday, not January, not when things settle down. Because I promise you, things are not going to settle down. Life doesn't have a quiet season waiting up ahead for you to finally take control of your mind. This is the season, right here, the noisy one. The tired one, the uncertain one, the one you're in. That's the one where the work gets done, or it doesn't get done at all. Here's what I want you to do. 3 things. Small, doable, undramatic, starting tomorrow morning. First, when you wake up, do not, under any circumstance, reach for the phone first. Not the first minute. Not the first 10. Not the first 30. Sit up, feet on the floor, and spend the first 10 minutes of your day deciding what your mind is going to be about today before the world gets a chance to decide for you. That's it. 10 minutes. No phone. Just you and your own head. On purpose. Because whoever gets to your mind first in the morning is going to steer it for the rest of the day. Most people hand that steering wheel to a screen before their feet even touch the ground. Don't be most people. Not tomorrow. Not anymore. Second, sometime during the day, catch one thought. Just one. One negative, looping, familiar, tired, sabotaging thought. And instead of arguing with it, instead of feeding it, instead of believing it, just notice it. Say to yourself quietly, there it is again. That's just weather. I don't have to be that today. That is a small thing. It looks like nothing. It is not nothing. It is the beginning of taking back the deed. And once you can do it with one thought, you can do it with 100. Third, before you go to sleep tomorrow night, write down one sentence. Not a paragraph. Not a plan. One sentence. The sentence you're choosing to plant in the garden of your mind starting tonight. Not somebody else's sentence. Yours. Something true. Something firm. Something that fits the person you are becoming. Then read it out loud. Once, slowly, and go to sleep. And do it again the next night, and the next, and the next. And do not, under any circumstance, break that chain on day 4. Because day 4 is where most people quit. Day 7 is where the mind begins to trust you. Day 30 is where the mind begins to obey you. Day 90 is where you start to become a person you have never met before. That's the whole program. It is not fancy. It is not new. It is not complicated. It is old. It is quiet. It is boring. And it is undefeated. Because the mind, like a garden, will always yield to the person who tends it. Always. It has never once refused. It only refuses when nobody shows up. So show up tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Take the step today, not tomorrow, not later. Today. Even if it feels small, even if nobody sees it, especially if nobody sees it. Because the discipline nobody sees is the one that builds the mind everybody eventually notices. That's the mechanism I promised you at the beginning. Small, private, repeated, refused to be skipped. That's the whole thing. Every serious life is built on it. Don't major in minor things. Don't spend your best mental hours on things that don't matter. Don't hand your best thoughts to whoever screams the loudest on your screen. Don't rehearse the very life you say you don't want. Here's what I want to leave you with. Slow down for these last few words, because they are for the person you are becoming, not the person you have been. You are not weak-minded. You are untrained. There is a difference, a very big difference. Weakness is who you are. Untrained is where you are. And where you are can change starting tonight, not because you found a new technique. Because you finally understood that the 6 inches between your ears is the only real territory you own. And it has been waiting for you to come home. You are not broken. You are unpracticed. You are not doomed. You are undirected. You are not too old, too tired, too far gone, too damaged, too anything. You are exactly where the training begins. Every disciplined mind you have ever admired, every calm, focused, unshakable person you have ever wished you could be, every one of them started right where you are. Noisy head.
Tired eyes.
Doubts running loose. The only difference is they started, and they did not stop. You are joining a small group tonight. Whether you know it or not, a small group of people who have decided, quietly, without applause, that they are going to stop being carried by their own untrained minds, that they are going to take the wheel, that they are going to tend the garden, that they are going to guard the door, that they are going to feed what serves them and stop feeding what is killing them, that they are going to become, one day at a time, the kind of person who owns their own head. And that small group, that's the group that ends up owning their life. So remember this. Winning in life is not something you fight for. It is something you think your way toward. Winning is not something you seize. It is something you become worthy of, one thought at a time. Winning is not something you find out there. It is something you build in here. Because the moment you command your mind, you have already begun to command your life. And the moment you refuse to, you have already begun to lose it. You already have everything you need to begin. You have this breath. You have this quiet. You have this decision. And you have the one thing the whole world can't touch unless you let them. The 6 inches between your ears.